Duma. It is Friday, October 28th, 2005, and I sit here in my office staring at 5 cartons containing the last 27 months of my life. My book. Oh my God. I carefully open the outer carton, fight the styrofoam popcorn, and pull the inner carton free. I score the tape holding the flaps together, lift the white cover sheet, and there I am, staring up at me with a wry grin on my face, arms folded defiantly across my bosom. What a journey from June of 2003. I met a man that night who had become my brother. The cosmos had brought him to Lahaina on that night, in that gallery, where I stood awaiting the delivery of a print I had just bought. The print was entitled Duma. Duma means cheetah in Swahili, and what a cheetah she was. Majestic and intent, her gaze fixed on some creature in command of her attention, far in the distance that we could not see. I'd seen her a few weeks before on a Sunday afternoon. I had to have her, and so have her I did. Tonight, I would take her home. I truly had no idea how this image, this symbol, would rule my world for the next 2+ years. I had no idea, as I stood there staring into that focused eye, that behind me loomed my destiny. It is an undeniable force luring my attention from that print to the man standing behind me. He is very tall, has a long ponytail, and kind, knowing eyes. He looks at me and smiles. I smile back. At first, I think we are flirting, but it isn't long before I realize the attraction we hold for each other extends far beyond anything physical. And then we are the only two in the crowded gallery. We fall into conversation as if we'd known each other for eons. Everyone else is lost on some level far below us, and then, in a blink of an eye, he is gone. I nearly panic. For some unknown reason, I cannot let this man get away. I look into my hand to discover his card. Below his logo and the name of his production company, his name appeared simply as Brother. I walk to my car and carefully lay Duma in the trunk. I start to slip in behind the wheel, but I cannot go home. I walk down to one of the local pubs, order a drink, and dial the number on the card that is still in my hand. He answers and then materializes next to me before I finish my drink. Over the next 2 weeks, we are magnetized as our conversation spills over. We have created a new language, and we are thirsty for the events of each other's past as we search for the path that has led us to this place in this time. And more important, why? For I know, more clearly than I know anything in this lifetime, that we were destined to meet. He shares with me his portfolio of images. I share with him my poetry and prose. I have been shy of sharing myself with others, yet for some unknown reason, I am unafraid of this man's rejection. As I finish my recitation to him one night, I am ready to tell him my assessment of why we are here. But when I tell him I believe we have met so I may commit to paper his fascinating life, he only shakes his head in awe. No, he says finally, we met because I was meant to help you produce your book. And that's how it started. Over the next 2 years, through stops and starts and hurdles and sprints, the raw manuscript evolved. This is the point at which I stopped writing on Halloween afternoon. I had preparations to make. Halloween is a special day for me. 7 years ago tonight, I had spent the first night in my Puamana home. 2 years ago on this night, I had met Dan, the man who would become the love of my life. And tonight, we would do Front Street proud as I dress as, what else, a cheetah in leopard clothing, and Dan as a wild animal trainer, complete with authentic bullwhip and pith helmet. Over dinner at the yacht club, we chat with Terry and Larry about their extensive travel, and the subject of going on safari comes up. I think it's strange that I have never considered Africa as a destination. We leave the club and join the throngs of ghouls and goblins on Front Street. When we reach the intersection at the Pioneer Inn, directly below the restaurant where I had my first meeting with Brother, the crowds make me swoon. I should have been ready to go home, but some force pulls me out of the crowd and under the banyan tree, where there is at last enough room to breathe. Our friends say their goodbyes and continue their trek on foot to Puamana. They aren't 3 footfalls gone when a nymph appears before us. She has on a tiny leopard miniskirt and little else except pasties on her nipples. She says something to Dan in drunk nymph speak as I shy away from her nakedness. "You have to meet my friend," she says. Still, I balk. I can't imagine that her friend would be anyone I would need to meet. I begin to drift in the direction of the Pioneer Inn. Dan grabs my hand and says, "Come on," and we trail behind the vision as she weaves through the crowd. In slow motion, the crowd that had held us in now breathes us out and dissipates into thin air along with the nymph. A spotlight of energy illuminates a rather nice-looking man in khaki who stands entirely by himself in the middle of a ring of light that has no light. We draw closer, and Dan inspects the baseball hat on his head. "I want your hat," Dan says as I struggle to make out what it says in the dim light. "You can get one if you come on safari with me," the man answers, and introductions are made. I listen half-heartedly to his pitch as I continue to strain to make out the hat that has caught Dan's attention. The electric shock that surges through me in times of realization starts in my toes and shoots up through my head, standing my hair on end. The name on the hat comes clear. Duma Safaris is the script. The image below is a cheetah at a dead run. I draw in a breath and I try to calm my heart from pounding. "Duma," I utter, and the nice-looking man in the safari clothes grins and says, "It means cheetah in Swahili." I know that, and tell him so. I tell him I own a print titled Duma. "By Dennis Curry?" he asks. "Yes," I breathe. "I produced that piece," he says. Another shockwave rushes through me. After that, I have trouble concentrating on what he is saying, and I am hoping that Dan is absorbing the details. It seems the man has a safari scheduled for late January, and he has some openings. Reasons I can't go race through my head. He gives us his card, tells me to email him with my address so he can send me the information, turns on his heel, and disappears into the ether world where he had come from. I stand there staring at his card in the dim lights hung from the banyan tree. My legs are rubber anchored in cement. I am vaguely aware of Dan as he takes my hand and begins to lead me away. We stroll in the direction of the Pioneer Inn. I am in a movie in which the script is being written as I move through it. I am an observer of magic. My mind sifts through the writing I had done earlier this day. What I had written, I thought, had signified the end of a journey, the delivery of my book. What I have just experienced is that magic portal opening up to a whole new journey. I am being lovingly handed off by brother, who started me on this journey, to this stranger, who would take me the rest of the way to somewhere I still could not comprehend. This was all too much. I was on overload. I stop Dan in mid-stride and turn him to me. I say, "You need to listen to what I'm going to say." I have his attention. I tell him about the story I began writing this morning, this story, and how it started with Duma, and how I thought it had finished when I got my book. He listened to it all, and then he looked sincerely into my eyes and said, "You have to go on safari." All I could say was, "I know." Duma was the beginning of all this, and today we had met them. I was transported back in time to only 2.5 months ago, to Halloween night when the magic touched you and me, and both of you took me by the hand and introduced me to the stranger who would become my guide in the land of Duma. Mr. Duma Safaris himself. There had never been a more appropriate time to read any story than that moment. I retire to my tent and pull out my yellow pad. I write only one sentence before I turn off the light and let the scene play on that screen inside my head. The sentence says simply, "Today, February 1st, 2006, will forever be known as the day of the Duma." And then I settle down between the sheets that have been warmed by a hot water bottle and dream the dream of the cheetah.